gets it, spins away, baseline shot. Shea puts it in and walks it off in OKC. Giddey keeps it himself and takes it up as he glides with the finger roll.
What is up, Thunder fans, and welcome to the Postgame podcast. I am your host for tonight, Tayler Peterson. Find me on Twitter at Taylor_P15. You can find us at the _uncontested on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you name it. We're pretty much there. I apologize for my voice. Got battling a little bit of a cold. So not the best post game to be covering, as we'll get into. And also I'm battling a little bit of a cold. So bear with me here, but appreciate all of you tuning in, even after a game like tonight. As the Thunder, unfortunately, dropped this one to the Phoenix Suns on the second night of back-to-back, 132-101. Before I get any further, we are a proud part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network and dailythunder.com. You can find us at those places as well. And yeah, like I said, not nearly as fun as the game that my guy Silva got to cover last night. Like I said, appreciate all of you jumping in the chat, especially tonight after a later game. Be sure to continue to drop those comments, those questions. I'll be sure to address those at the end. I guess let's go ahead and break this one down. Again, like I mentioned, second night of a back-to-back. Big game against the Warriors last night in OKC. The Thunder were incredibly competitive. End up winning that one in a really close competitive game. They have to jump on a flight, not to make excuses, but they have to jump on a flight, right? Travel to Phoenix super late last night, get in, and then they have to play again tonight against Phoenix. Just some pregame notes here, though, outside of that. So, like I said, second night back-to-back, but no Shea due to injury management, as we know. I'm sure all of you have seen Justin Termine's already all over OKC about that. Just ridiculous. I won't even dive into it. I won't even waste time. But yeah, no Shea due to the injury management, as Dig Don't, alluded to here about a week ago when Shea came back, that they were going to be managing him on second nights of back-to-backs as one of those, as well as some of the stretches during the game that he would be playing. And then no J-Dub either, as he's still, battling that wrist sprain, which is really unfortunate because we saw how unfortunate or how badly the team could have used even just one of them tonight. I mean, Shea's a no-brainer, but even Dub being able to just have another on-ball creator like that, I think would have really helped this team. So both of them were out tonight. However, the Suns were also shorthanded, as Kevin Durant was scratched last minute after slipping in pregame and hurting his ankle. I don't mean to say that like chuckling or anything. It's just kind of like crazy. And like at first I was like, okay, maybe that's just like a last minute scratch trying to rest KD against a not full Thunder squad. Makes sense. But no, you can actually go on Twitter. There's actually video footage of KD in pregame warmups, and there was like a slick spot, and it looked like he rolled it pretty bad. So hopefully KD obviously is good to go. Nothing long term. I think Monty Williams said after the game that they were going to do more imaging tomorrow. So hopefully it's nothing serious, but it was actually a really bad ankle sprain and just a freak accident during the pregame. So because of that, there's no Kevin Durant tonight. So I thought, you know what? We played the Suns really well before without Shea. Obviously, J-Dub was playing then, but still, no Kevin Durant. Maybe there's a little bit more of a chance here. Maybe I'll have a little more fun of a game to cover. And fortunately, the first half was a little more fun. The first quarter happens. 7 quick points for Devin Booker and 6 for Isaiah Joe. Kind of went toe-to-toe, and I thought, here we go again. Maybe Isaiah Joe is going to have another breakout game against the Suns. He had his career high the last time we played the Suns in Phoenix here a couple weeks back without Shea, setting up for it all over again. But then the Suns get up 28 early, largely led by Devin Booker, which is really the theme of the game. He was just absolutely incredible, couldn't be stopped. Usman James was actually the first sub for OKC tonight. Again, short-handed OKC, but thought that was interesting after Us had been playing so well. That was really good to see. However, he was quickly followed by the rest of the Thunder bench, essentially the bench unit for the night. The Thunder started the game 2 of 16 from the floor. Just pretty pitiful. Again, definitely some second night of a back-to-back legs there. And on that point, that was largely led, I felt, by I'm not just going to poo-poo on Lou Dort the whole entire postgame, I promise, but I tweeted at one point around this time that Lou's been an offensive disaster, smoking layups, up to 2 turnovers already. He just needs to slow down a bit. It feels like he's moving way too fast. And what I mean by that is he's getting to the rim at will. He even had like some really nice Euro steps in there. And man, if he's finishing those layups, that first quarter, the tone of this game looks completely different. But unfortunately, he wasn't. I mean, at that point, I think he was like 0 of 5 or something ridiculous. And like I said, it kind of led to the tone of the game there in the first quarter, and led to that 2-16 start for the Thunder. That was led by Lou with no Shea and Dub. Jerry Butler gets some early burn, his first burn with OKC since being acquired here on a two-way contract last week, I believe, late last week. And he immediately makes his first jumper and then hits a three, gets 5 straight points with about 4-ish minutes left, which is really cool. Tre gets his first minutes in 2 games. He did not play the previous 2 games. JRE did not play the previous 3 games. They both got burned tonight. And we'll get into Tre. I really liked what I saw. Also liked what I saw from Butler. Again, he drilled a 3, so 5 straight points for him. I believe it was 5 straight. Regardless, he had 5 quick points there when he got in. Booker had 14 points of 6 of 8 shooting in the first 9 minutes, which is just insane. Just incredibly efficient. Microwave. Nobody could stop him. Lou Dort, nobody. It was ridiculous. Dario comes in, his first game back in Phoenix since the trade. Or maybe it's his second. I guess it's probably his second. I can't remember now. All these games here at the end are starting to blur together. Regardless, Dario comes in, gets hacked down low, no call. Then you see, I thought he was doing a celebration. Like I thought he got the and one. I kind of looked down and looked back up. I thought he was doing like some celebration, but no, he was really pissed off. And sure enough, he had gotten hacked, no call. He's actually bleeding. Has a big old spit like on his beard. Just craziness. Anyways, gets teed up after yelling at the ref. Goes over, gets cleaned up on the sideline because he had blood, spit, all that fun stuff. And Daigneault's over there cussing out the refs too. So that was a pretty fun and unique sequence. Just worth noting. That kind of fired up the team a little bit. 34-21 after one. Booker had 17 of those 34. Obviously, the Suns were ahead. And the lineup of Butler, Mann, Waters, Usman, and Dario kind of stabilized things a bit there for OKC. And as we'll see, as we get into the second quarter, they go on a bit of a run and really chisel into that lead. Thunder shot 6 of 22, only 27% in the first quarter. So second quarter, JRE starts the second after not playing the previous 3 games, so he gets some burn. And I'll get into him here in a second. Did some really positive things. Baze got in for Phoenix. Surprisingly, was his only burn in the entire game. Even at the end when it was a blowout, he didn't get back in, I believe, which was really interesting. Lindy drills another 3. He's up to 9 points, 3 of 5 from 3. He really caught fire here to begin the second. JRE had 2 really nice plays. This is what I was alluding to here a little bit ago. Had 2 really nice plays in his first minutes in a while. He comes in, secures a big rebound over 2 different Suns defenders before kicking out immediately to Lindy in the corner for 3. Lindy drains another 3. And then he had another, JRE had another really nice play at the top of the key. The ball swung to him. And instead of taking the shot, he makes an extra pass to a cutting Usman baseline for a wide open slam dunk. And that kind of led to a timeout from Phoenix and kind of sparked a Thunder run there. So I thought he came in and he gave some really good minutes after not playing, like I said, the past 3 games. Just something to be monitoring. But it was great to see him come out confident and contributing. Mann hits a 3. Speaking of players who haven't played, coming out aggressive and contributing. That was all awesome. Waters hits his 4th 3 of the half shortly after. Baze tried to, imagine this, Thunder fans. Baze tried to drive, basically go ISO on Giddey. It was not good. He was out of control, hesitated way too long. Giddey was playing good defense, and then Tre Mann comes out from behind and blocks Giddey. And that was about the extent of Bazley tonight. Giddey drives and cuts the Suns' lead to 4 right after that play with about 6:26 or so left in the half. The fact that Thunder caught it too, cut the lead to 4, especially with Booker playing like he was incredibly impressive and shows the poise of this young Thunder team. Shorthanded, second night of a back-to-back. I was fired up at this point. Season high 15 points for Lindy Waters on 5 of 7 from 3. Then Lindy hits another 3. So Sam Cooper, this is, for those of you longtime uncontested listeners, Sam is a co-host of the Timeline podcast with Mike The Hill. They are part of the Blue Wire podcast family. We've had them on. We've done cross episodes before. Great guys. But I thought he had a really good point here in the first half. Unfortunately, this would end up kind of being the opposite of what happened in the second half. But Sam said KD being out is obviously huge, but you also really feel the absence of connected pieces. Flashers, high post players, etc. He mentioned, obviously Michael, Cam, Saric against a zone defense like OKC. Good gamble from Daigneault in this half in regards to obviously that zone defense. And it was true that Thunder looked very good there in the second quarter defensively. Unfortunately, that was about the only quarter they looked good defensively. But that zone defense was working, especially with that bench unit. 31st half points for Booker at one point. And then, okay, so basically the last play before the end of the half, they called Booker for a shooting foul. Lindy gets the ball in the corner, pulls up for three with like 0.3 seconds remaining on the shot clock. Booker fouls him. They review it to see if it was a flagrant, if Booker was landing in the landing zone of Lindy Waters. In the meantime, they review to see if the foul occurred before the half. They reviewed to see if it was a flagrant, and they called a tee on Mark Daigneault. So Daigneault's teed up because he's been just chirping at the refs all game. It was pretty awesome to see, honestly. He's pretty fed up with referees, and it's cool to see this side of Mark. I love it. Anyways, Chris Paul hits the technical free throw. Then they declare that Lindy did get fouled, but it wasn't a flagrant. So Lindy knocks down all three of his shots before the end of the half. And that leads us to halftime. Suns 60, Thunder 52. Lindy had 21 points. Booker had 30. Just two superstars going head to head. Typical. Thunder shot only 35.4% from the floor overall, but shot 43.5% from three. I found that fascinating because I cannot tell you the last time the Thunder, and maybe it's more frequent than I think, but it just seems very unique to me that this Thunder team would have a higher percentage from three than from the floor as a whole. I haven't seen very much of that this season. So third quarter, Lindy starts the second half instead of Wiggins. Obviously, makes a lot of sense. And no offense to Wiggins, who played fine, but you got to start Lindy. And just like that, the Thunder find themselves down 18, which is an explosion led by Devin Booker. Devin Booker picks up his fourth foul, so he actually sits. But then Terrence Ross and Torrey Craig, a bunch of other Suns players just get it going from outside, completely destroy that zone defense I just spent a little bit hyping up. And the Thunder find themselves down 18 with 7:29 still to go in the third, and with Booker on the bench in foul trouble, which you obviously have to take advantage of, especially without Shea or J-Dub, and the Thunder just weren't able to do so. I tweet that someone else is going to have to step up alongside Lindy because nobody else was really, at least from a scoring standpoint, and the defense was just absolutely awful. They were struggling to generate offense, and they were playing little defense. Terrible combination. No brainer. Let's see. After a 22-8 run, the Suns led by 21. OKC calls a timeout, trailing 87-68 with about 5:30 left in the third. Defense was non-existent. Terrence Ross caught fire in the third, had 18 by the time the third was over. Rough third for the Thunder. They were outscored 44-28, and the Suns led 104-80. Waters the third had 23 points. Obviously, he cooled off. The Suns did a really good job on him in the second half. And Phoenix shot 16 of 31 from deep, which is wild. Fourth quarter, we'll go through this a little quicker because it just wasn't very fun. Not a lot happened. I tweeted out that I believe the Silva, this is kind of a fun aside. I tweeted that I believe the Silva curse, formerly known as the Justin curse, has now found its newest victim. It is officially the Tayler curse. So again, for those of you longtime listeners, you'll remember a couple seasons ago when it seemed like Justin, every time he covered a game, Thunder got completely blown out. Last season, it was Silva. Poor Silva. Had just joined. It was one of his first post games. Gosh, that might have been 2 seasons ago. Maybe Justin was 3 seasons ago. Regardless. No, it was last season. One of Silva's very first post games was a 71-point historic loss against the Memphis Grizzlies. And it seemed like it just continued from there. Obviously, not to that extent. But Silva's curse has been lifted for those of you who listened to last night's podcast. And it seems like I'm on a little bit of a losing streak here. However, Jacob called me out and said, bull crap. And he was right. He went ahead and looked into it because there was nothing else really to do during the fourth quarter. So if you look at the breakdown for the uncontested co-host post games this season, Jacob is 6-7 with the most post game coverages. We should add. Shout out to Jacob for holding us down. I'm next at 5-6. So had a really great start to the season, but I am on a losing streak. However, not nearly as bad as I thought. So yeah, probably a little overreactionary to me on my behalf. And then OKC tracker, Justin 9-1. I mean, man, talk about a rebound from 2 seasons ago. Pretty impressive. Silva's 3-7, and Nick is 2-9. So maybe the curse is now on Nick. But regardless, just kind of a fun aside here. And an otherwise pretty dull fourth quarter. Ross kept it going, got another quick 6 points. Things got even worse quickly. Let's see. Thunder lose 132-101. But just some quick notes here. 101 points is the lowest the Thunder have scored since the Pels game, the game against the Pelicans on February 13th. And it's tied for their fourth lowest scoring game of the season. Just shows you how they played offensively. Again, a lot of that can be contributed or attributed to the second night of back-to-back, playing without two of your really good players, and that's not even including, obviously, Kenrich, Poku, etc. I'm mainly talking about players who were unexpectedly unavailable tonight. We just learned about more short-term, I guess is the way to put that, in Shea and J-Dub. So let's see, just quickly, I'm going to go through some of these comments before jumping into my big takeaways, because there were some that popped up here while I was going through those breakdowns. Eamon says the Silver Curse just skipped last night. That's what we'll call it. I like that. Yeah, not a great record for Silva, but he got a good one last night. So there we go. Eamon said, kind of hard to have only Giddey as the only primary ball handler, forcing guys into uncommon roles. I think that's spot on. Hotspot Casino says Sar needs to work on spacing and his footwork. He played really well last year, but this year his game is off. I'm going to be honest, Hotspot Casino, I think that's a fair analysis. We just haven't seen enough of him with the Thunder to really. But if you're talking about blue games, I think that's fair. Let's see. Oh yeah, Eamon says blame Silver for this because he jinxed us by mentioning going 500. Every time we get close to the 500 mark, just slowly slips away from our fingertips. Investor Blades. Is Dort the new? Actually, I'm gonna save that one. That's a really good one to talk about at the end. Investor Blade says Terrence Mann had no business going off for 24, or Terrence Ross. Excuse me. Yeah, I'd have to agree. Pretty crazy. I believe that was mostly scored for the Suns, and maybe the mostly scored all season, although I'm not completely sure on that one. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into the meat and the potatoes, the big takeaways for tonight's game. And believe it or not, they are not all negatives. I'm going back to my old reliable, the positives and the negatives. Again, keep mentioning the longtime listeners. I don't mean to over and over, but for those of you who have listened before, listen to my post games. We start with the negatives, always end on the positives. So negatives for tonight. Starters, led by Dort and Giddey, struggle without Shea. And I mentioned Dort and Giddey because, and Giddey wasn't terrible. We're going to get into that. But the last post game I did was against the Sacramento Kings. And that was without Shea. And Dort and Giddey both really struggled without Shea. So it's interesting. We obviously saw Giddey play an incredible game last night. That contributes to this as well, right? But that's also with Shea. So that's a really good thing. Giddey and Shea can coexist. Dort plays better when he's in a more defined role with Giddey and Shea, et cetera, but they do seem to really kind of struggle on their own, and that's okay. These are good learning experiences for these guys, but man, it did not look good at times, really for the starters as a whole. Just looking at the starters, 31 points to the bench's 70. We'll get into that, the bench's 70 soon. They shot a collective 9 of 39 from the field, 3 of 15 from 3, and had 9 of the 16 turnovers. The team 16. That's rough from your starters. Again, Dort really struggled offensively. He couldn't finish any of his drives. They were just completely off. I mean, some of them were bricks. He wasn't even hitting the rim. The offense just hasn't been there, nor has the decision-making. And Mark mentioned post-game the lack of rhythm offensively. And I think Lou kind of leading the charge offensively without Shea, without J-Dub, taking on more of a primary ball handler role alongside Giddey, kind of set that tone. And that's unfortunate because, again, it's good for Dort to get these experiences and to grow. But I also hope it doesn't lead to him, just starting to develop bad habits. We don't want to see this next year when you have Chet in these lineups as well, for example, everybody's full strength. I think Dort is going to be at his best on this team when he's in a more defined role offensively, catch and shoot threes, driving some and creating for others, and then obviously playing solid defense. But on nights like tonight, it makes me just a little concerned. But again, hard to blame Lou too much when he just guarded Stephen Clay last night, but he certainly struggled with Booker tonight dramatically. It was not good. He was not engaged defensively, and I don't want to harp on him too much here, especially defensively, because again, that's a pretty tough assignment. Stephen Clay, hop on a plane later that night, don't get into Phoenix until super, super late, wake up the next day, guard Devin Booker. That's tough. Giddey was aggressive, which was important, but he struggled without Shea or Dub to grade alongside him. I mentioned that. Really, Giddey overall had a pretty solid stat line outside of his shooting numbers. 10 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 of 12 from the floor, which is bad. But he was 1 of 1 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line, which I like, all in 22 minutes. Also had 2 steals. So again, he was aggressive, but when you have that much more attention on you, when you're Josh Giddey, you don't have another player like Shea taking away some of those defenders, or the best defenders in many cases. That's going to lead to a lot more attention on Josh Giddey and therefore more struggles. And he's also coming off the second of a back-to-back, obviously, an incredible game that he had. I think those are all contributing factors. So I don't mean to make excuses for these guys, but it's just worth noting, right? And was a theme from tonight's game, and I think something worth breaking down. Related to all of this, and related to some of those second night of a back-to-back disclaimers, the defense. The Thunder gave up 132 points, which is the 5th most they've given up this year, behind only the Knicks, who scored 135, the Bucks, who scored 136 against the Thunder, the Hawks, 137, and the Warriors back in February, 141 points. The Thunder were out-rebounded by 13, and they allowed the Suns to get 24 points off turnovers. The Suns also had 27 fast break points to the Thunder's 15. I mentioned those stats because, again, and Mark even kind of alluded to this post-game as well, but when the Thunder control the pace, when they're the ones playing and getting out in transition and getting steals and deflections and getting the points off turnovers, that's when they're at their best. That's when they're winning basketball games. That's what we saw last night against the Golden State Warriors. We did not see that tonight. They had tired legs. They weren't engaged. They were shorthanded. And thus, we saw the Suns control the pace and the tempo of the game. And, they end up winning the game. And so I think that's kind of just another good example of the style of play that the Thunder want to play. And we're seeing it night in and night out typically. But that's why like a night like tonight sticks out so drastically, is because they didn't play that style of basketball. And it's understandable why. But you're going to have to rebound after today, after tonight, with some big games coming up, and get back to playing that kind of basketball. Obviously, getting Shea back will help. Hopefully, we'll have Dub. We'll see how severe that wrist injury is. Now, on to the positives. The most obvious one. Lindy Waters III catches fire. Loved what we saw from him tonight. I just love that a guy like that comes off the bench. He gets spotty playing time. And I've criticized like some of the time that Lindy's gotten over the past couple of weeks, because they're like spot minutes here or there. I'm wondering why. It just felt like maybe Dayton and the Thunder are rewarding him with minutes for, that kind of thing. I'm like, I don't really understand this here. Well, tonight I understand it. You give him those minutes in case he starts to catch fire, because he's a microwave shooter. And if he catches fire like that, it can completely change the game for your team. And that's what happened tonight. I just love that Lindy, even in those spot minutes, the inconsistent playing time, can come in like he did tonight and just be super confident and aggressive without stepping outside the bounds of the offense. He moved really well off ball, which led to some of his open shots. I think that's really important. Something that the best shooters in the league do, obviously. Even created his own shot. It wasn't just a three-pointer. Obviously, that's where the majority of his shots came from, but we even saw him create a nice little mid-range shot there in to start the second half. And he's showing us that he has a real shot to stick around. I mean, I'm still not completely sure. Excuse me, but he's showing us that he certainly deserves a fair shot, and he's going to give it his all. And I'm really curious, because a player like this, alongside a Shea, a J-Dub, a Giddey, can be really, really valuable, being able to shoot like that, especially catch and shoot threes and spacing the floor. And then he really competes defensively as well. Even if he doesn't have like elite size, he has enough size and strength and good enough basketball IQ to be a positive factor on that end of the floor. And he remains engaged. So all really, really positive things from Lindy. Excuse me. Goodness. This cold is messing with my voice here a little bit. Tre Mann makes the most of his minutes. I thought Tre had a really good game, really good bounce back game after not getting to play the last two. Let's see, he had, I just lost it there, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 of 9 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3, 4 of 5 from the free throw line. It's another, I mentioned that with Giddey, getting to the line, knocking down his shots. I love that Tre Mann was able to get to the line, and I say as much as he did. He's able to get to the line, and he made the Suns pay for it. He had a steal. Thought he played pretty good defensively again, which we've seen off and on throughout this season. But he just seemed more aggressive with his shot. He hit open catch and shoot shots, which I continue to say is so important for Tre Mann, because just like I talked about with Lindy, that's how Tre Mann's going to make it with this team long term. Obviously, he has all these other great attributes to his game that make him extremely versatile if he can do the bread and butter and can knock down open catch and shoot threes when he's playing alongside, which will allow him to play along primary ball handlers like Dub, Giddey, Shea, combination of those lineups that will get him playing time. And then, when defenses adjust, that's when he can do his own thing, create his own shot, create for teammates, which we saw more of tonight as well. We saw him create with some opportunities to be the primary ball handler. So all that to say, I really liked what I saw from Tre, and really good to see after he struggled recently. And then after struggling, had that 2-game stretch where he didn't really play. And the game before that, he didn't play very much. So just great that he kept a positive attitude and came out here just like Lindy and some of these guys that I've talked about and made the most of his opportunity. Just really impressive stuff, and hope to continue to see Tre finish the season on a high note and continue to trend up. And then my last positive. Thunder bench has a historic night. 70 points is a franchise record for the Thunder. Did not get a lot of publicity. We did not even see Thunder PR tweeted out because obviously it was not a very fun game. However, Thunder bench really was the highlight of this game. I spent plenty of time on Lindy Waters and Tre Mann. So let's just go ahead and quickly and go through the rest of the guys that played tonight. Sarge surprisingly did not have a very good game tonight, but he only played 5 minutes. So I'm not sure if he's injured now. That's something to keep an eye on after he got cut there. Hopefully it's nothing serious. Maybe it was just an opportunity to get eyes on JRE and Ousmane Dieng, get them some more minutes. But regardless, a little concerning we didn't see very much of Sarge. Olivier Sarr came in. He did some good things, 2 or 3 from the floor. I think it was, I mentioned him earlier, Casino something, Hotspot Casino mentioned Sarr. Yeah, he didn't look necessarily like, he didn't stand out, but the playing time he got, he contributed. But the guy's really worth mentioning. Ousmane Dieng, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 of 13 from the floor, 2 of 6 from 3. Not efficient. And I understand some of that was garbage time at the end. But even in the minutes that he was playing, I thought he contributed really well defensively and off ball and creating for others, being a connector, kind of that Poku nectar that we've talked about earlier in the season for that second unit in that first half when he went on that run. And 2, in the second half, he was really aggressive with shot, even though it wasn't falling. We've seen it fall for him in the past, some with the Thunder, mainly with the Blue. But the fact that he's feeling more and more comfortable, showing more and more aggression, the willingness to do so. I don't mean to be like hypocritical and say, Lou Dort's jacking up shots, super aggressive, and Ousmane needs to be more aggressive. Lou needs to be less aggressive. Us needs to be more. But there's a balance there, right? And they're obviously in different stages of development. So to see Ousmane make the most of those minutes and to seem to get more and more comfortable and confident within his role is really promising. And I hope to see that kind of expand as we go throughout the rest of this season, especially if we see Shea sitting out back-to-backs. And, I think there's more opportunity for Ousmane to expand his game and get a little more opportunity offensively. So I'm curious to see how that looks. But tonight, 2 positive indicators, I think, moving forward for Ousmane. Obviously talked about Lindy Waters. Let's just talk a little bit about Jared Butler. Gets his first minutes with the Thunder. Only plays 15 tonight. I say only because a lot of those came in garbage time. But he looked good. He's small, but he competes defensively. He looked a little lost at times. Some of that could have been the zone. He's probably not used to playing a zone. Probably hasn't played that in a long time since his days back in Baylor. But obviously a scorer. It was good to see him, again, just another guy, aggressive, willing to look for his shot. Curious how he'll play alongside other guys if he can create, especially at his size. He's going to have to be able, and on this team, he's going to have to be able to play within the offense and create for other teammates. But another offensive weapon, I'm kind of curious to watch him the rest of the season as well and just see, again, if that aggression translates and if he can have any big scoring games for us. And then the last person, obviously, I talked about was Tre Mann, who, again, played really well. It was great to see him kind of have a bounce-back game. So those are my positives. I know it wasn't the most exciting game to break down, not the most exciting themes, but there were some things, as always, to break down. So, as always, I appreciate all of you for jumping in to chat. Let's go ahead and get through some of these chat questions, comments. Then we'll go ahead and get out. Or we'll look ahead to what's coming up. Then we'll get out of here. Eamon said ref Guwop was tired of Mark. Yeah, that was hilarious. They had some major back and forths, some videos of Mark cussing. You gotta love it. Let's see. Eamon also mentioned, call me a loose stan because I am, but I don't think we see Lou's true long-term fit with this team until we see Chet. Chet likely gets some ball handling duties, shots, and can clear up the lane to help Lou. I think that's a really good point, Eamon. And I also think, like I said, it just further defines Lou's role. So there will be less opportunities where he's having to create his own shot or drive to the rim, and more opportunities for him to be able to space the floor. Just I think it'll be a more comfortable role for him, and it'll lead to a better fit overall. I think that's a really good point. Investor Blaze says J-Dub will take Dort's starting gig if OKC lucks into a top 5 pick next draft. That's also fair. Like, who do the Thunder end up drafting? Do they end up trading for somebody and consolidating some of those picks and assets to trade for somebody already in the league, or just moving up in the draft in general? All very good points. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through these. A lot of good comments. Seeing if there's any should mention here. David mentioned, I think guys on the back end of the roster are more likely to go than them still going back and forth about Lou. Trumpy said, did you see KD slip? Yes, it was not good. There's actually a screenshot some of the Suns fans were tweeting out. I mean, it is full on like 90-degree angle. It's a little scary. So like I said, do not want to see a player like Kevin Durant, get injured again. This time, something completely unrelated to his other injuries in the past, and on something so crazy and random like a pregame a pregame shoot around. So hopefully he's okay and it's nothing serious. But yeah, it was not good. Eamon also mentioned that the Clippers are winning tonight. So yeah, not great either. Although I believe are they playing the Lakers? I can't remember. If they are, I'll check really quick. I might be making that up. No, they're playing the Raptors. Okay, so never mind. Doesn't really affect. Yeah, we want the Clippers to lose that one, and they're not going to. So, not the best night for OKC. But looking ahead, Thunder are now in sole possession of the 11th spot in the West. Speaking of the Clippers and the West in general, and they're only a half game behind the Pelicans and the Lakers, who are tied at the 9th spot, and they're only a half game up on the Blazers, who just lost tonight. So therefore, the games this weekend are huge. Thunder play another back-to-back, which is brutal. They have another back-to-back beginning Saturday in New Orleans. So they have a couple days off before that, which is really nice. I'm sure we'll see Shea in New Orleans before playing the Spurs and San Antonio on Sunday. Thunder need to get both of those wins if they're going to make this play-in. So it's going to be really interesting to see who plays for OKC, what those lineups look like, how they play. Obviously, that one in New Orleans is going to be tough, and another back-to-back is tough as well. But regardless of what happens, regardless of the outcomes, the uncontested, we'll have you covered for it all, whether we're hosting a play-in party or making plans for the lottery night. We'll be there for it. We're already talking about it in our Slack, starting to scheme for either of the scenarios. And look, it's a little frustrating at times like tonight, but either way, the Thunder are in really good shape. So thank you all again for tuning in, especially on a late game. I apologize again for my voice and some of the sniffles tonight. Hope everyone has a good evening, good rest of the week, and until Saturday, Thunder up.